They say you can't choose when lightning strikes, but mine came at 56, in the form of a man 2 decades younger, with eyes that saw straight through me and a smile that made me forget who I was supposed to be. I was a wife. A mother. A woman who had followed every rule, kept every vow. Until I didn't. This is the story of how a single moment, unexpected, irrational, and impossible to ignore, unraveled a lifetime of quiet compromises. The kind of story that will leave your chest tight and your heart pounding. To my loyal subscribers, thank you for always showing up. Make sure to like, comment, and turn on the notification bell to never miss a new episode. And if you're new here, subscribe now for more real-life inspired stories of love, betrayal, and the hidden battles behind closed doors. My name is Marianne Keller. I'm 56 years old. I live in a quiet suburb just outside of Charlotte, North Carolina. The kind of place where lawns are trimmed, mail is waved over, and secrets are buried deep under smiles and polite chatter. I was married to Tom Keller for 32 years. He's a good man. Hardworking. Dependable. A high school teacher turned vice principal, now semi-retired. We raised 2 kids together, both grown, both out of the house, both living lives that rarely include calling home unless something needs fixing. From the outside, my life was comfortable. Predictable. Safe. But safe can turn into suffocating when you're the only one awake inside your marriage. Tom and I hadn't kissed in months. We slept in the same bed but felt continents apart. Conversations revolved around grocery lists, property taxes, and what to watch on Netflix, not dreams or memories or desires. At some point, I stopped asking for more. Maybe because I didn't believe I deserved it anymore. Then came Alex. He wasn't supposed to happen. Not even close. I met him at a community art show. It was a Saturday. I'd gone alone because Tom wasn't interested in hippie paintings, and would rather be home watching golf. I wandered through rows of canvases and handmade crafts, sipping weak lemonade from a plastic cup, pretending I wasn't lonely. That's when I saw him. He was standing next to a large photo print, a quiet lake at sunrise, mist curling over the water like breath. I stopped to admire it, and he smiled. "You like it?" he asked. "It's beautiful," I said. "I took it just outside Asheville," he told me. "Right before dawn." Almost froze my fingers off waiting for that light. He introduced himself, Alex Monroe, 34, a freelance photographer who had just moved into town. He had shaggy hair, calloused hands, and an ease about him that was both disarming and unfamiliar. We talked. About art. About music. About small towns and empty nests. I didn't tell him I was married. Not then. It wasn't because I wanted to hide it. It just didn't come up. And honestly, I didn't think I'd ever see him again. But fate, or foolishness, had other plans. A week later, I ran into him at the local bookstore. He remembered my name. Remembered what painting I'd lingered on. We ended up getting coffee nearby. Just coffee. Just conversation. But something about that coffee stayed with me longer than it should have. He asked questions. Listened when I spoke. Laughed at my sarcasm. Looked at me like I was someone worth noticing. When I got home, Tom barely looked up from his recliner. "What took you so long?" he asked. I said, "Traffic." And that was that. In the weeks that followed, I saw Alex again. Once at the farmer's market. Once at a local poetry reading I never would have gone to if I hadn't hoped he might be there. Each time, the pull grew stronger. It wasn't just about attraction. It was about recognition, the feeling that someone finally saw me. The woman behind the years, behind the mom and the wife and the grocery runs. The woman I'd buried so deep, I'd almost forgotten she existed. I didn't tell anyone. Not even my sister. Not my best friend. Because I knew if I said it out loud, it would become real. And real was dangerous. But it was already too late. Something had awakened in me, something reckless, hungry, and starved for warmth. And the worst part? I didn't want to stop it. I've always believed that women like me don't do things like this. I grew up Baptist in a small Georgia town. I was raised on the belief that you stick it out. You stay faithful. You do your duty and keep your vows, even when they become heavy, even when no one remembers to thank you for carrying them. That belief kept me steady for years. Through pregnancies, through illnesses, through moments when love felt like a memory more than a present thing. I was loyal because I thought that's what made me good. But something shifted the day Alex looked at me like I was more than a shadow in someone else's life. It started small. A text message. I found another lake near the one you liked. Thought of you. Attached was a photo, golden sunlight spilling through trees, water calm as glass. Beautiful. Peaceful. A whisper of something more. I waited 2 hours before replying. It's stunning. Thank you for sharing it. And that was it. Until it wasn't. A few days later, he texted again. Then again. Until we were talking almost every day. Small things, a book recommendation, a new picture, a funny thought. Sometimes I'd find myself smiling down at my phone like a girl half my age. Tom never noticed. Or if he did, he didn't ask. One day, Alex invited me to his studio. It's nothing fancy, he said. Just some gear and half-finished projects. But I'd love for you to see it. I told myself I was just being friendly. That I was curious about his work. That there was nothing wrong with visiting someone who made me feel interesting again. But deep down, I knew. The moment I stepped inside his small rented loft on the edge of town, I knew this was no longer innocent. The room was filled with light, real, golden light that poured in through wide windows and landed on shelves of cameras, frames, and scattered prints. It smelled like coffee, wood, and something faintly citrus. Clean, uncluttered, warm. He handed me a glass of water and gestured toward a series of portraits pinned to a corkboard. These are the ones I haven't shown anyone, he said. They feel too raw. I studied the images. A wrinkled man laughing, eyes crinkled and joyful. A teen girl staring boldly into the lens, mascara running. A woman with gray streaks in her hair holding a bouquet of wildflowers, looking off into the distance. They're beautiful, I whispered. He looked at me and said softly, so are you. My heart thudded in my chest. I should have left then. I should have made some polite excuse and hurried out the door. Instead, I said, you don't even know me. And he said, I know what it feels like to be invisible. That was the moment everything shifted. He didn't kiss me that day. He didn't even touch me. But he didn't need to. His words reached deeper than any hand ever could. They found the bruised parts I'd kept hidden, and they held them like they were worth something. When I got home, I sat in my car for 10 minutes before walking inside. My hands were shaking. Tom was in the kitchen, fixing a sandwich. You all right? He asked. I nodded. Just tired. He handed me half of the sandwich without a word, like it was routine. It used to be love. Now it was habit. That night, I lay in bed next to my husband, staring at the ceiling. I hadn't done anything. Not technically. But the guilt sat heavy on my chest like wet wool. Still, the messages continued. The meetings, the laughter, the shared glances that said more than words. Then, on a rainy Wednesday afternoon, it happened. Alex invited me to meet him at the lake. The one from his photo. I told Tom I was going to run errands. My voice barely trembled. When I got there, the fog was lifting off the water. Everything was quiet. Still. He was waiting by the shore, his hands in his jacket pockets. I didn't think you'd come, he said. I walked toward him. I almost didn't. We stood there for a moment, both unsure. Then I did something I never thought I was capable of. I reached for his hand. And he didn't pull away. That lake, quiet and beautiful, became the place I left behind the woman I used to be. We didn't kiss that day, not yet. But the moment our fingers touched, the world around us blurred. A silent agreement passed between us, as if we both knew we had crossed into something dangerous but irreversible. I remember the sound of the wind moving through the trees, the damp wood beneath the dock, and the way Alex looked at me, not like I was someone's mother or someone's wife, but like I was someone. Someone who mattered. We sat side by side at the edge of the dock, shoes off, toes grazing the cold water. He told me about his life, how he dropped out of college to care for his mom when she got sick. How he used to be engaged once but ended it because she wanted something I didn't know how to give. And I told him about mine. About Tom. About the long silences, the growing space between us. About how I used to feel like I had a purpose and then, slowly, I just didn't. I used to be a dancer, I said quietly, surprising myself. Before I had kids. Before my knees gave out. Alex turned to me, his voice low. I can still see the rhythm in the way you walk. It was a strange thing to say. And yet, I felt it deep in my chest. After that day, it all sped up. We met again the next week. Then again 2 days later. Texts turned into phone calls. Phone calls turned into long hours in his studio, him editing photos, me pretending to read, both of us pretending not to ache. Until one evening, the pretending stopped. It was raining again, like it always seemed to do when something big happened between us. I had gone to his studio to drop off a book he'd asked about. We were supposed to talk for a few minutes. He was in a hoodie, barefoot, music playing low in the background. The soft hum of a record player, a scratch here and there. It felt intimate before anything had even happened. I handed him the book, and he smiled. Then I turned to leave, because I knew. I knew I couldn't stay. I knew what we both wanted. But before I reached the door, he said my name. Clara. I turned around slowly. He took a step closer. I should have stopped him. I didn't. When his lips touched mine, I let go of everything I thought I was supposed to be. I didn't think about Tom. Or my children. Or my age. I thought only of the warmth in my chest, the hunger I'd buried for decades, and the fact that, for the first time in years, someone saw me. And wanted me. We didn't make it to the couch. It happened there, in the middle of the floor, raw, clumsy, and absolutely real. Afterward, I cried. Not because I regretted it. But because something in me had woken up, and I didn't know if I could ever put it back to sleep. When I got home that night, Tom was in his recliner watching a game show. He looked up, nodded, and said, "Hey." "Hey," I whispered back. I went into the bathroom and stared at my reflection for a long time. My makeup was smudged. My hair damp from the rain. And still, I looked more alive than I had in years. But the guilt was waiting. It sat behind my eyes, deep in my chest, curled up like a quiet animal. I had crossed a line I couldn't uncross. And yet, a part of me didn't want to. In the days that followed, I thought about ending it. About cutting things off before anyone got hurt. Before it went any further. But how do you walk away from the first person who's made you feel seen in over a decade? Alex wasn't just a fling. He was a mirror, showing me the woman I'd forgotten I was. Every time I tried to end it, I found myself back at his door. Every time I thought I could live without him, I heard his voice in my head. "Clara, when you're with me, you don't disappear." I knew I was living on borrowed time. And I was right. Because secrets like this don't stay quiet forever. And the day the truth came out, everything changed. They say secrets have a way of rotting you from the inside out. I didn't believe that until the day mine came to light, the day the world I thought I had under control collapsed like a house made of matchsticks. It started with something small. A missed phone call from Alex. Then a second one. Then a text that read, "We need to talk." I think someone saw us. I sat in the car outside the grocery store, my hands frozen on the steering wheel. My heart thudded like it did the first time I kissed him. Who saw us? How? When? I couldn't think straight. That night, when I got home, Tom was already in the kitchen. He was stirring something in a pot. It smelled like chili, his signature, "I'm trying to be helpful," dish. He looked at me and smiled, but there was something in his eyes. Something unreadable. "Long day?" he asked. "Yeah," I said, setting the groceries down carefully. "Just a little tired." "You got a message," he added, turning back to the stove. "On your other phone." The words stopped me cold. My other phone? I didn't have another phone. Except. I did. The cheap prepaid one I bought in a fit of paranoia, for Alex and me. Hidden deep in the laundry room behind an old basket of towels. I had only used it a few times. But now, the fact that Tom knew about it was like standing naked in a storm. "I don't know what you're talking about," I lied. He didn't argue. Didn't even look up. Instead, he reached into the drawer beside the fridge and pulled it out, my burner phone. He held it between two fingers like it was something diseased. The screen was cracked. Dusty. But it lit up when he pressed the power button. And right there, in plain sight, was the most recent message from Alex. "I miss you already. Same time tomorrow." Silence filled the room like poison. I didn't know what to say. Tom looked at me then, really looked at me. And I'll never forget what I saw in his face. It wasn't rage. It wasn't even sadness. It was something worse. Disappointment. The deep, hollow kind that comes when someone you thought you knew turns into a stranger. "How long?" he asked quietly. I opened my mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. The words stuck like thorns in my throat. "Clara," he repeated, "how long has this been going on?" "A few months," I whispered. And then came the longest silence of my life. He didn't yell. He didn't throw anything. He just turned off the stove and sat down at the table, like a man who'd just been told something irreversible. I stood there shaking, a 56-year-old woman who had made a mess of the only life she'd ever known. "I gave you everything," Tom said finally. "I stayed. I didn't leave when you got depressed. I didn't walk out when you stopped talking to me. I was here. I chose to be here." "I know," I choked. "I'm sorry, Tom. I don't know what's wrong with me." He laughed, cold and bitter. "Don't do that. Don't make it about what's wrong with you. Just be honest. You wanted this. You chose him. I didn't plan it. But you let it happen." I couldn't argue. He was right. I had built a quiet betrayal, one text, one smile, one lie at a time. "I think you should leave tonight," he said softly. "What?" "I need space. I can't look at you right now. Go to a hotel. Or stay with him, since that's what you want." "I don't," I began, but the truth was, I didn't even know what I wanted anymore. I packed a small bag. I called a rideshare. I didn't even say goodbye. And just like that, the life I'd spent decades building was behind me in the rearview mirror, dissolving into the dark. Alex opened the door with wide eyes. He looked like he hadn't slept. "Did you tell him?" he asked. "No," I whispered. "He found out." I collapsed on his couch. He tried to hold me. I couldn't feel anything. I wasn't his lover. I wasn't Tom's wife. I wasn't anyone. Over the next few days, things moved fast. Tom told the kids. Our oldest daughter wouldn't answer my calls. Our youngest sent me a single text. "I don't know who you are right now. I just need space." Alex, for all his kindness, started to pull back too. Not in a cruel way, more like a man who realized he'd gotten caught in something far more complicated than he was ready for. We were fire and rain, doomed to cancel each other out. And deep down, I knew it. The days after the storm of truth settled into a heavy silence that weighed on my soul. The house felt empty, even when full. My world was shattered into pieces, but somewhere inside, a tiny voice whispered, "This is not the end." I had betrayed my marriage, my family, my own sense of self. Yet, I had also begun to awaken from years of quiet dissatisfaction. This painful reckoning forced me to look deeper, to ask the questions I'd avoided for decades. Who am I without Tom? Without the life I built? And most importantly, who do I want to be? The first few weeks were the hardest. My phone rarely rang. When it did, it was my daughter, her voice guarded but softer than before. Slowly, she started to let me back in, not as a perfect mother, but as a flawed human trying to make amends. Tom and I spoke only when necessary. No easy conversations, just the logistics of healing. He was hurt, yes, but beneath his coldness, I sensed a sliver of understanding. Perhaps because he too knew that sometimes love isn't enough to save what's broken. As for Alex, our brief, intense connection ended quietly. We realized that what we had wasn't sustainable, two lost souls grasping at comfort in a storm. I thanked him once, for reminding me that I was still capable of feeling alive. Then I let him go. With time, I began to rebuild. I started therapy, a small step that led to big changes. I faced the loneliness and fear I'd hidden behind the walls of my marriage. I rediscovered old passions, painting, writing, the simple joy of a walk in the park. One afternoon, as the sun filtered through the curtains, I found myself smiling at the reflection in the mirror. The woman looking back was different, scarred but stronger, broken but hopeful. I was no longer the woman who had cheated, lied, and run away. I was someone who had faced her mistakes, who was learning to forgive herself and, slowly, to forgive others. Life isn't about perfection. It's about the messy, painful, beautiful journey of becoming. And this is my story. A story of love lost and found, of endings and beginnings, of a woman who dared to start over at 56. Thank you for being part of this journey with me. If this story touched you, please like, comment, and subscribe to support more real-life inspired stories. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss a new episode.